My wife thought I'd never find out, so I destroyed her life. I never believed in fate. Destiny was something people clung to when they needed an excuse for their failures or a way to make sense of the chaos in their lives. I was a man of logic, of plans, of structure. But that night, I was exactly where I needed to be. The meeting with a client had ended early, and instead of grabbing a drink downtown or lingering at the office, I drove straight home. My mind was preoccupied. Our upcoming anniversary trip, the house renovations we had been discussing, maybe even the idea of starting a family. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the lights were on in the living room. Nothing unusual. But as I stepped out of the car and approached the front door, I heard laughter, light, casual, and yet something about it felt wrong. I wasn't planning to eavesdrop, but then through the slightly open window I heard her voice. "Come on, Michelle," my wife Sophia said, her tone dripping with amusement. "Nathan is just temporary. He's safe, stable. A good placeholder until something better comes along." The words didn't register at first. Maybe I had misheard. Maybe she was talking about a coworker, a friend, a house project. Anything but me. But then Michelle spoke, her voice hesitant. "You don't actually mean that, do you? You've been married for 6 years. Sophia laughed again, softer this time, indulgent, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. 6 years too long, she said. "Don't get me wrong, Nathan is great, loyal, dependable. But that's the problem. He worships me. I barely have to try. And let's be real, Michelle, a girl like me. I could do so much better." Silence. A long pause. And then a name. "Just look at Ryan. He's ambitious, powerful. Everything Nathan isn't." Ryan. The air in my lungs turned to ice. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. I knew Ryan. He worked with Sophia. I had met him once or twice. Charming, successful. The kind of man who always had an easy smirk on his face. The kind of man who took what he wanted. The world I had built, the life I had trusted, started fracturing like shattered glass. Each word she spoke drove another crack into it. Michelle's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sophia, if Nathan ever finds out, he won't," she cut in, her voice brimming with confidence. "That's the beauty of it. He's so trusting, so blind in his devotion. He'd never suspect. And if he ever does, I'll spin something, cry a little, make him feel guilty for even thinking it. It's almost too easy." I felt sick. I should have burst through that door, confronted her, screamed. How long? How many times? But I didn't. Instead, I stepped back into the shadows. My heart was pounding. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. Rage. Betrayal. Humiliation. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to scream. No. I was going to destroy her. I drove away from the house, my mind racing. Sophia thought I was predictable, safe, just a stepping stone on her way to something better. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I needed proof, cold, hard evidence. I couldn't just accuse her. I needed undeniable, irrefutable proof. By the time I pulled into an empty parking lot on the other side of town, my mind was already forming a plan. I took out my phone and opened a secure app, a project management tool I used for work. Except this time, it wouldn't be for blueprints or budget tracking. I was about to build the perfect trap. First, surveillance. I installed tracking software on her phone. Undetectable, disguised as a routine security update. Within minutes, I had access to her messages, emails, call logs, even her location in real time. If she so much as whispered Ryan's name, I'd know. Second, leverage. Sophia had everything because of me. The house, the cars, the lifestyle she flaunted so easily. All mine. And soon she'd have nothing. The divorce wouldn't just be brutal. It would be precise, engineered for maximum destruction. I wouldn't just take half. I'd take everything she valued, her reputation, her stability, her sense of control. She thought she was playing a game. She had no idea I was about to flip the board. I barely slept that night. Lying in bed beside Sophia, Listening to her soft, steady breathing, I fought the urge to grab her by the shoulders and shake the truth out of her. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing through every step I needed to take. By the time the first streaks of dawn crept through the curtains, I had a plan. Sophia stirred beside me, stretching with a contented sigh. She turned, draping an arm over my chest. Morning," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. I fought back the bile rising in my throat. How many times had she woken up like this after being with him? Instead of recoiling, I played my part. I turned, brushing a strand of hair from her face, my fingers trailing down her cheek. "Morning, beautiful." She smiled, pressing a quick kiss to my jaw before rolling out of bed. "Busy day," she said, yawning. "Brunch with Michelle, then a meeting at the office. Probably the gym after work." Brunch with Michelle, the same friend who had heard everything last night. I wondered if Michelle felt guilty. Not that it mattered. Michelle wasn't my concern. Sophia was. And by the end of this, she wouldn't even recognize the life she once had. I spent the next week gathering evidence. Every text, every call, every meeting Sophia had with Ryan. I documented everything. The messages were the worst. "Can't stop thinking about last night. See you after work?" "Nathan's so clueless. If he only knew where I really was." "Soon, baby. Just a little longer and he'll be out of the picture." I wanted to smash my phone. Instead, I saved every screenshot in a hidden folder. But it wasn't enough. I needed something stronger. Something that would leave no room for doubt. That's when I decided to set her up. I called an old friend, Jake, a private investigator. We hadn't spoken in years, but some friendships never fade. When I explained the situation, he didn't hesitate. "I'll get you what you need," Jake said. "Give me a week." 7 days. That's all it would take to destroy her. On Friday night, Sophie told me she had a late work meeting. I kissed her goodbye, pretending to believe her lie. Then I followed her. Jake had already confirmed the location, an upscale hotel downtown. Room 715, paid for in cash. I parked 2 blocks away and walked in through the side entrance. My heart pounded in my chest, but my hands were steady. By the time I reached the 7th floor, Jake had already planted a hidden camera inside the room. A small, discreet device in the corner near the ceiling. It would record everything. I didn't need to barge in. Didn't need to make a scene. I just needed proof. As I stood outside the door, I heard muffled laughter. Then Sophia's voice. "God, I've missed you." Followed by a low murmur from Ryan. My fingers curled into fists. I forced myself to step back, breathing through the anger. I turned and walked away. This wasn't the moment for confrontation. This was the moment for victory. By morning, I had everything I needed. The footage was clear. The audio undeniable. Sophia had no idea her life was about to crumble. I spent the entire day preparing, transferring assets, closing accounts, freezing credit cards. By the time she came home that evening, she no longer had access to anything. She walked through the door, smiling, oblivious. "Hey, babe," she said, dropping her bag by the couch. "Long day." "I bet," I replied. Her smile faltered. Something in my tone must have given me away. "Is everything okay?" I pulled out my phone, opened the video, pressed play. Ryan's voice, her voice, the unmistakable sounds of betrayal. Sophia's face went pale. "Nathan." "Don't," I said, my voice like ice. "I know everything." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I stepped closer, watching the panic set in. "You were right about one thing," I said. "I was blind." I tossed a folder onto the table. "Divorce papers." "Not anymore." Sophia reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Nathan, please, I turned and walked out the door. Behind me, Sophia collapsed into sobs. But I didn't look back. She had played her game. Now she had lost. 3 months later, I was a free man. Sophia had fought, screamed, tried to manipulate. But in the end, the evidence was overwhelming. She lost everything, the house, the money, even her reputation. Ryan? He disappeared as soon as the scandal broke. Sophia was left with nothing. And me? I finally had peace. For the first time in years, I could breathe. And as I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, looking out at the city, I smiled. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.